first presented with my icebreaker speech, my brain immediately went blank, as I had a certain propensity to do while I was in college, really, when asked to speak in a public forum or any type of setting where I'm asked to kind of speak in front of a lot of people. Brain just immediately goes blank and kind of fishing for something to say. So to kind of help with that, for this particular speech, I thought that I could talk about stuff that I thought related to me and stuff that I was interested in. One of those things being traveling. And I feel that some of the trips that I've taken in the past, I felt have kind of shaped me into the person that I've sort of become today. And I feel that on some of those trips, I've also allowed myself to see kind of into the future of how I'd like to be and where I'd like to see myself going to in some of these places. And so if you'll allow me, I'd like to share with you guys 3 of those trips in particular that I felt shaped kind of who I am and showed a little bit about myself and who I'd like to be. So for the first trip, it involves when I was in elementary school with my older brother and my parents. We would go over to California on a road trip, per se, and we would go for a week's time period and come from Las Vegas and go to California. And so my parents would take us on this trip, and we'd get a week away from school, which would be kind of awesome to be able to tell kids, be like, yeah, I'm about to go to California for the week, and you can be jealous while you're doing work and stuff. So that was always kind of a little fun to be able to tell them about going up, leading up to it. So when we go on these trips, we would build certain traditions that we would take on with us on a yearly basis, because my parents started to take us on these trips every year pretty much from the time I was in probably 3rd grade up until middle school, really. And we would go for once a year, and we would go for a week's time. And on these trips to California, we would go to a plethora of amusement parks. I'm talking, we would go to Disneyland, California Adventures, Universal Studios, Magic Mountain, you name it, Knott's Berry Farm, we were there. And we were there from sun up to sundown. I'm talking, if the park opened at 10, we were there at 9 to get in line. And if it closed at 9 in the afternoon, we were there at 8:59 trying to get on the last ride before they pulled us out. And we were probably those 2 kids that a lot of people saw were crying, being drug out by the kids. Just one last ride, one last ride. And so every year we kind of would build certain traditions that we would go on and certain things that we've noticed that we were doing every single year. And one of those would be the waking up beforehand to go to the amusement park and getting dressed and picking out a nice outfit to go to the park and being able to try to stay there until it's closed. I noticed that some of these traditions almost stuck with me as I transitioned and got older into my college years to where I went with my current girlfriend to Knott's Berry Farm for our own kind of trip. And we decided to go to Knott's Berry Farm for Fright Fest. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but they basically take the amusement park on a regular day and then transform it into basically like a Halloween kind of fest with all different festivities and everything. And so going on that trip was a good opportunity for myself to kind of partake in my own tradition of going on a trip on a yearly basis and being able to kind of build up memories with somebody else that I feel is special, that my parents probably did with my brother and myself when they would go on these certain trips over to California. And for myself and my girlfriend, when we would go, on one particular time it was interesting for us because on the second year that we went to Knott's Berry Farm, we decided to go on one of the haunted houses. Now my girlfriend is not too fond of getting scared and kind of out in the open, and so I kind of thought it was really a good experience and kind of a good laugh for myself to be able to take her on one of these haunted houses, but not necessarily tell her what was going on with it. And so we would go through this haunted house, and as we're walking through, you just know at the end of a corner that something's going to pop out, but somebody that doesn't know that isn't going to think that, so I'm going to go ahead and let her walk forward and lead the way. So we're going around, and then all of a sudden somebody jumps out, and it scares her, of course. And so her first reaction is to look at me, kind of like, oh, why did you let me walk here? You're supposed to be the big, strong guy protecting me and stuff. And so that's always fun for me and her to kind of go back and forth with each other on when we're at these amusement parks or anywhere in general. I get a good joke with her and about how, she got really scared and almost like you can see the white in her eyes and just being scared and everything. And so that kind of is a tradition that I took with myself from going with my parents, and it sort of leads into my last trip that talks about the international traveler within me. And so a couple of years ago, I was able to go on a cruise with kind of my larger family, including my grandmother and kind of aunts and uncles, to where we went to Belize and Cozumel. And the kind of impact on me was the fact that being on that boat, you almost forget that you're on a boat in a sense, because it's so vast and it's so large. You kind of have to pinch yourself and say, wait a minute, like you're kind of in the middle of the ocean and there's nothing in one direction and the other direction. So it kind of allows you to put in perspective that there's a lot more out there to view. And so I feel that through that trip in itself allowed me to want to become an international traveler that can go over, cross waters in different areas that I've never seen, and also build those traditions that my parents have instilled in themselves that I've almost created with my girlfriend, that I can hopefully one day present with my family to go on and have our own tradition. And so hopefully through those 3 stories that I've presented, I've been able to kind of give an idea of kind of who I am and kind of why I've kind of come to where I'm at. And hopefully through Toastmasters, I'm able to transition over from the introvert kind of personality that I have into somebody that's more talkative and able to speak confidently when speaking on trips that I've been on and would like to go on. Thank you.